Let's revisit one of the computers from my small computer collection. This is a Dell PowerEdge 840. Initially introduced in 2006, this is the second generation from 2008. You can also see it has an Intel Xeon CPU. Basically the only reason I haven't thrown this computer out yet. Because after doing the video about it a while back, I haven't done anything very useful with this computer. It's rather nice looking, but it's big, heavy, and power hungry. Not to mention its noise. It is too loud to be used anywhere but a server room. It has almost nothing on board, not even sound, an extremely basic video chip, though it has these nice Dell branded keys. And there's very little expansion capability too. Only a PCI Express x8 slot, a x1 slot, and 3 PCI ports, 2 of them PCI-X. So maybe you could install a sound card, but definitely not a good video card. The CPU socket this computer uses is called LGA775. So could the CPU be taken out of it and put in a different computer? And would it be a good idea? Let's find out. The candidate is this HP Compaq 6000 Pro from circa 2009. It came with a Core 2 quad and has the same LGA775 socket. Now, just because it has the right socket doesn't mean it's compatible, but this Xeon is a rebranded Core 2 Duo from the Conroe microarchitecture, and this HP can be configured with the Core 2 Duo, so it's worth a shot. Still, I don't recommend trying to install a CPU you're not sure of the compatibility, and I'm not responsible for any damage you cause if you try this yourself. Let's start by removing this plastic baffle from the Dell. We have to unlatch it here. And the giant CPU cooler is already accessible. This one is particularly nice because it's a screwless design. You press down these tabs and the cooler unlocks. Have to do it on the other side too. And then the cooler just pops out, revealing the CPU. Thermal paste is obviously a bit old, but it came out with almost no effort. And of course it has to be cleaned up. Okay, it cleaned up pretty easily. Not bad for 18-year-old thermal paste. And can you read the marking now? It is an Intel Xeon 3060. Before taking that CPU out, let's look at the CPU in the other computer, the HP with the Core 2 quad. We have to get these wires out of the way. Already done that. And similar to the Dell, bend the clip to get the plastic thing out of the way. But this CPU heatsink needs to be unscrewed. Unfortunately, I don't have a very good camera angle, but you can imagine something getting unscrewed. By the way, the screwdriver bit is a T10 Torx. And now we should be able to take out the cooler, or heatsink, whatever it's called. It also wasn't sticky. And there's the Core 2 quad on the same socket. Let's clean it up. And here's the marking of the Core 2 quad, a Q8400. And there you go, I did the swap off camera because I couldn't get a good camera angle and I didn't want to jinx it. But I put the Intel Xeon in the computer with the Core 2 quad and it booted up successfully. Windows even installed a driver for it for some reason. But of course, nothing is perfect, is it? Let's restart and see what happens. And we have a problem. 1801 microcode update error. It basically tells you to update the BIOS to add support for this processor. But 1, it's an older processor, and 2, the BIOS is already updated. So what can be done about this? Absolutely nothing. We just have to deal with pressing F1 every single time. But I think that's a small price to pay for the computer parts I have access to. Let's see the system properties. There it is. A few days later, let's talk about how this computer works after the CPU swap. Every startup it did a loud beep, which got annoying quite quickly. So I went to the setup, and there's no way to suppress that error. But you can disable the internal speaker, and that will disable the beep as well. Unfortunately, that means to get sound out of this computer, we need to plug in speakers or headphones. But I'd rather do that than endure that beep every time this computer is turned on, because it is quite loud. Here's the system information. I know the RAM setup is a bit crazy, but it's 8 gigs nonetheless. And let's start up back to Windows. So how does it perform? It is quite fast thanks to the SSD, but it does perform worse than the Core 2 Quad. Because, if I haven't stressed it enough, just because it's a Xeon doesn't mean it's the best. It's older, it has fewer cores, but hey, I wanted to try it in a video. There's literally no advantage. The Windows Experience Index is worse. I'll show you the comparison. The memory score is also lower for some reason, even though I haven't changed anything there. CPU speed can also affect memory speed in a way that someone can explain better than I can. Same for benchmarks. The performance is about the same as my 2009 Core 2 Duo laptop, and it's basically the same as a Core 2 Duo desktop from 2006 or 7. Way worse than the Core 2 Quad this computer originally had. But at least Windows is still activated, because of course the motherboard is the same. And that newer thermal paste I installed must be really good, because I've never seen a computer run this cool. Less than 20 degrees. I've even run Prime 95 for an hour, and it didn't even reach 50 degrees, which is pretty impressive in my opinion. I don't want to make an advert for the thermal paste brand I've used, but it's a synonym of freezing, and monkeys can be like it. I've applied that thermal compound to my laptop too, and now when the CPU is fully loaded, it's around 65 degrees instead of 75. Not a huge improvement, but still significant. I've also compared startup time between the previous CPU and this one. Surprisingly, it's about the same. I haven't used this installation much, but apart from the warning on every boot up, it seems to perform just fine. Will I put the Core 2 Quad back in this computer? Probably, because it doesn't work in the PowerEdge, the computer the Xeon was in before. That Dell is too old for the Core 2 Quad. Due to its cons mentioned earlier, because it's only designed for server use, I'll likely retire it. But I'll keep its processor, in case I find a more suitable motherboard to put it in. I did try one last thing though. I read on a site called the RetroWeb that my PowerEdge motherboard can support some Pentium 4s, specifically the Cedar Mill generation, one of the last ones. And I have a computer with that CPU, my IBM Intel Xeon, which I've retired and it's still awaiting recycling. So I took the CPU out of it, Pentium 4 with hyperthreading, put it in the PowerEdge, still doesn't start up. So either that RetroWeb page lied, or maybe there are some subtle differences. But let's not get too far into a tangent here. I think this experiment is concluded. CPU swap worked. Absolutely no real benefits, but there we go. Oh, and should you do something like this? Only if you really like tinkering with computers like I do. Thank you for watching.